right, we're now recording. Hello, everyone. Noreen here. And today I have with me Eudo. And this is a new segment that I'm introducing called In Conversation With to allow me to invite people like Eudo into the conversation and also from other industries and also to learn from one another. So thank you, Eudo, so much for joining me today.
Welcome.
So, a little bit of fun fact, Yudo and I have known each other for over 20 years. We were at the same group when we started at hotel school in Switzerland 20 years ago. And it's quite poetic that I'm doing this recording today from Switzerland while Yudo's sitting. Actually, are you in Singapore now?
Yes, I'm in Singapore now.
Okay. So thanks to technology, we're able to do this recording, but it's thanks to relationships that we've known each other and we've been able to stay in touch and reconnected a couple of years ago. Over, yeah, 20 years is a long time,
Well, I
know.
would say you're actually, one of the few that I was able to, met up in several destinations.
It's true.
Remember in Singapore, in Thailand, in UK as well.
That's
So
true.
that's something that I really do treasure. And I still remember the first time when we met up, we were in the same group. We are also in the same French class.
Yes, because we both
We are
spoke
all
zero
beginners.
French.
Yeah, exactly. We couldn't, speak a word of French. And right now, well, who knows? It's slightly better.
Just a little bit.
Mm.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. And let's start with a few introductions. So tell us a little bit more about what you're doing today.
Sure. Well, so my name is Eudo, and I'm the Senior Director of Business Development for Wyndham Hotels and Resort, based in the Asia Pacific headquarter in Singapore. So what I do is I look after 5 countries. We call it Indo Chan, that consists of Vietnam, Thailand, Cambodia, Myanmar, and Laos. So primarily what we do is management and franchise agreement. So my day-to-day work involving with going out to source for client, convincing them to use our brand to join, and then eventually to sign agreement with us.
All right, thank you so much for that introduction and telling us a little bit more about what you're doing today. So there are two topics that I wanted to discuss today that I found interesting and sort of based on our last conversation that we had. And the first one I wanted to talk to you about was mentorship.
Mm.
I wanted to talk about how you use mentors. How did you find them? Do you have more than one? And how do you and the importance for them in your life? And the reason why I want to talk about mentorship is something that myself personally, I've never, I guess, I had an official mentor or even thought about asking to have a mentor. I've always been afraid or
Mm.
like, do they have time for me? Am I wasting their time? Am I interfering? But my perception of mentorship has obviously changed over the years, and it's something that I'm focusing on, especially as I'm about to launch this new program on specifically on mentorship. So I thought it
Mm.
would be an appropriate time to ask you that and ask you, yeah, how has mentorship played a role in your life?
Well, I would say, my first official mentor, I mean, earlier, previously, certainly it would be my teacher, my parents. As we grown, we would be intimating, someone who are closest to us. But the real official mentor would be starting, in fact, dated back in 2009. So I don't know what happened, but at that juncture, I know I need to have a mentor. So I was looking through my LinkedIn contact and I reached out to one industry seasonal hoteliers. So I sent an email to him. I said, mentioning about my background, my interest, my personality. And in fact, here I actually got a small extract of that mentor introduction email seeking to him. I want to share with you over here. So I told him, besides that, I said, I'm curious in nature, love changes, analyze things constantly. I have been searching for a mentor for the past few months, and I believe it's good to have a mentor outside my company so I can express freely regarding career aspirations and life matters, as well as gaining fresh perspective in issues. So I came across your profile in LinkedIn and have an impression that you are the best mentor as you work in different roles operators, consultants, savings owners, investors, and I want an experienced hotelier to challenge me to grow beyond my box. And I end up by saying, if you agreed, I will then send you an email pertaining my current projects. As I never officially have a mentor, please let me know your expectation of me and how often we can communicate. So we can then end the mentorship relationship at any time from either side if either of us believe it is overburdening. So actually, after that, I didn't expect because I always believe, if you don't ask, you won't get. It's nothing really to lose. And he replied back to me, and our mentorship, continued as such. And in fact, it's not really, frequent monthly conversation or dialogue, but I would say for this mentorship relationship, it's mainly related to career-wise, um, with long email correspondence because of certain demography age group. And we would meet up, once in a while during some annual industry events. So that, in a nutshell, was my first mentor. So we are still keeping in touch. And then I realized I have a second mentor. Now, this second mentor is slightly different. It's actually an ex-boss of mine who is based in Singapore. So we do have similar background. We are both Christians. We both have the same alma mater, which is real estate in National University of Singapore, and we work for the same company at that time. So while we are still working in the same organization, we would from time to time have meals. We shared about works, about industry insights, about our spiritual level. We'll be praying together. And in fact, right now, he's my mentor for personal finance. That I realize he's really good at that. So that is my second mentor. And then later down the road, I realized, particularly for the last 5 years, I have been changing to another mode. So I realized, instead of having one or two mentor, right now I actually have an advisory board. I call it council on different subject matters. I myself are also, mentoring, a couple of mentees, young ones, fresh grads, and the subject matters that I have, with my council, it could range from, from career, personal finance, IT, household related handyman issues, hidden germs in cities, gardening, cooking, inner peace. The concept is I actually don't want to overload, one or two person for everything. And obviously not everyone is, master in every single subject. And what I believe is it is very important to seek advice from the subject matter expert. And you would only know, as time goes. And sometimes certain people might be expert in several areas, but they might not be open to share. So you need to be, a mutual consensus between both parties to have a fruitful conversation or dialogue. Now, for me, even right now, networking is critical. And it can be networking from the same industry, different industries, or reconnecting with friends that you have been meeting, that you have not been in touch for over 10 years, 20 years or more, or even different age groups. What I find amazing these days is, I love talking to and mingling among retirees. Those, retired in different places, and they actually have a lot of wisdom of life. And you can touch base on them. And in fact, I have a lot of ideas about retirement actually from them. And you can also, I also find it amazing to be getting in touch with students, particularly students who are craving for knowledge, craving for learning. So these are the few groups that that I particularly enjoy talking to. Now, when it comes to mentoring, another key part is knowing when to stop. Because if you, for once, even one subject matter, if you keep on talking to a few people, I'm sure everyone will have their own ideas and opinions. And sometimes, you might be ending up in the, analyze, paralyzed stage of mind that you actually can't make your decision because, there are potentially conflicting opinions among all the council. Now, my take for that is I would kind of limit it to 3 to 5 councils for each matter. And then at the end, I have to make my own decision because at the end, it is my call. It is my act, my responsibility. So not blaming anyone, is my call at the end of the day. So that's basically, in a nutshell of how I look at mentorship. For me, it's continued. Certainly, I do believe, for a proper mentor, one is not enough. You certainly would want to have a few, but at different stages of life, there might be a need for certain aspects of mentors than others. But at the end, just be open-minded. As I said, if you never ask, you never know.
Thank you, Yudo, so much for that overview. And I love your advisory council. I think that's brilliant. I think, having different people for different things is important to learn from one another and also the different age groups. I was having a conversation about, generation recently and how different generations look at different things from the perspective of an employee, but also from the perspective of a customer. So that was really interesting. And especially for those of us working in hospitality, understanding those differences are good. But I love what you said at the end about, you have to, end of the day, you make your own decision.
Mm.
You cannot, yes, you can take advice as much as you like from whoever you want to, but ultimately the decision lies with you. So, and yes, you don't ask, you don't get that advocacy point, especially for women, is something that needs to be worked on. And it's just great to hear how you've approached it. And thank you for reading out your first email that you sent. It's great to have a real life example. So thank you.
Welcome.
And I'd like to build on that because I loved how you phrased that email. It was very open, very positive, but also very realistic. And
Mm.
your positivity is something that I've always admired in you. And in every interaction that we've ever had, you always challenge me in a way. It's to think of things differently. So I like
Mm.
spending time with you because it gives me that fresh energy as well and to
Mm.
think from a good place. So, that positive mindset yeah, I've always respected, and I'd love to hear from your perspective how that's played a role in your life.
Yeah. Well, when you talk about, positive thinking, there are a few areas I do want to share. Number one, I actually focus on my energy level, and I do have a self-dialogue from time to time. What this really means is, for me, every day or every week, I have a kind of scorecard, kind of comparing, my balance in terms of my career, my intellectual, spiritual, physical, and relationship needs. So you can see, career is only one of the five area. And I actually, every week would have a balance, and I would try to balance off, all these five areas. Now, in fact, for these five areas, career certainly is related to, your work. You need to have, your KPI, you get it done. Intellectual, well, I have a thirst for knowledge. So constantly I will be, listening to Spotify, reading books, and talking to others. Spiritual, Christians, so going to church, doing devotion. Physical, it would be related to the physical activities, the number of steps that I made in terms of diet that I have. Relationship would be social relationship, my families, and all that. So basically, in a nutshell, these are important things. And another aspect of looking at it is my energy level. Reflectively, especially to myself, how do I feel right now? Is it high? Is it low? Am I tired? Now, if I normally energy level is on the lower side, is mainly attributed to a lack of sleep and lack of water. So I would typically making sure I'm covered with those. And importantly also is to be able to again have another checklist. That's what I do. I actually have a number of checklists, unintentional. And this checklist is a list of friends or people. Those that I would be staying close to are those that would boost up my energy, and those that I would attempting to stay away from are those that drain my energy. Now, some of them you can't stay away from, which is fine. It's because it is what it is. But you need to have an honest self-talk, in creating this, and then you move on with that. At the end of the day, everyone have their own opinion. So you need to understand, are they putting or imposing the opinion to you? Is that affecting your own, energy as well as your own thinking? Now That's point one. Now, moving on, another part that I actually do believe in as well is knowing what makes you happy and do enjoy every small moment and creating memorable moments in life. Now, so there are more checklists that I prepared. It's easy, just create a list, what makes you happy. I like nature, I like mountains, I like, lakes and sea. I would try to, and I like to play around with, all kinds of animals, just watching animal shows and things, makes, find it amusing. And another part, that focusing on in terms of, enjoying small moments or creating memorable moments in life, I want to give you two examples. Latest one. So one of them, I called it delivering masks in clinic. So I actually went over to a clinic for health checkup, and then I forgot a face mask. In Singapore, you still need to have a face mask in clinic. So I forgot. So I went over to a nearby store to buy a box of mask. And when I'm in the clinic, I realized there were also a few people who got turned down by the nurses simply because they don't have masks. You know what I did? I told them, hey, come, I have plenty of masks. I was in your same situation. So please use them, have some. These are the moments actually that give delights to them, and it's convenient immediately. Now, another example was happened last week in Vietnam, in the Mekong Delta region, when I was joining a tour, visiting an ancient house. And in that house, I realized there are, a pair of couplet. Now, what couplet really means is basically, Chinese wordings, and in terms of rhythm and their meaning to it. So obviously, the owner doesn't understand what that is, and I actually share with the owner that I know what that means, and he was so excited, and immediately I was translating that, from Chinese to English, and the tour guide translate from English to Vietnamese, and afterwards he told me, "What about that? What about that?" And I translate all that for them. Now that was excitement to him, but what really amused me afterwards was he has a huge garden, and he told me, come over. And he went over to, the pomelo tree, and he picked up, two fresh pomelo from the tree for me. So now I have two, fresh whip, pomelo, and this is actually such a memorable experience that I have. So I would say, in life, just enjoy, every moment and everything that you have. And yeah, you can easily, create a lot of things that people do remember. And the last part that I want to share, in terms of positive thinking is always maintain a childlike curiosity and be spontaneous. Of course, not crazy spontaneous, but spontaneous, within boundaries, and you'll enjoy life. It's like I still remember, in fact, when I encounter, when I talk to a lot of friends, we have different sorts of little moments. I still remember, particularly, with two of my secondary school friends in Hong Kong. One time we were in an island in Cheung Chau in Hong Kong Island, and I have no idea, but definitely it's for me that we end up carrying bikes up in the hill. I was like, let's go biking. But we have no idea that actually is not possible to go biking. I don't understand why they have biking rental store. Or another time I was with another Vietnamese friend in Singapore. We keep on walking, along the golf course and trekking. Completely forget about it's getting dark, and at the end, suddenly, it got so dark, and I can really hear, all the nature, all the sounds, and it started to rain. So we got drenched, and at that moment I lost direction as well. But at the end we were safe. At the end we were safe. But these kind of moments, people would remember for life.
Thank you so much for sharing that, And I love that childlike curiosity. It's just I see that in my nephew or any of my friends, with young children and the way that they ask questions or look at things and the fearlessness as well.
Yeah.
I love that in children. And thank you so much for sharing that and your stories. It just helps to put things into perspective. And like you said, at the end you were fine. At the end you come away from these experiences with these memorable moments, whether it's too fresh pomelo or whether it's being that kind stranger offering out the masks to everyone at the medical center. So thank you for bringing that, yeah, that mindset and giving us those examples. It's definitely one that we can be inspired by.
I mean, the
Which
fact
bring
that it's not easy, to uphold, because we have our mechanism to keep on protecting ourselves. So when we are stepping outside of the zone, we tend to have a lot of concerns. But in fact, most of the time these concerns hardly materialize or happens. So for me, instead of being too fearful, I mean, I do, I'm not 100% positive all the time, certainly not. And I would say, when it happens to those stage, if it's really being afraid of certain things, I would write it down. I would, analyze and see what exactly is going on as the underlying causes. And sometimes it may be procrastination, just afraid of certain things, and just get it done. And once you get, small things done, and once you, let's say, for example, you have been grateful in what you do, then you continue to build up confidence with that. And this actually brings to another thing that I believe in is practice makes perfect. For new things, you might be fearful, but if you keep on practicing, that's okay, and you can easily move on. Another example was I got a souvenir from a friend, kind of pour over coffee, and I have never made coffee at home. And suddenly I got this cup. So what to do with it? So you know what I did? I realized, in fact, I need a whole set of things to be able to make my own coffee. I need my coffee filter, the coffee bean, and things. And at that time, I was in Chiang Mai. So what I did was I went to a few coffee shop and I asked them particularly how to use this, how many minutes, how long do you do? I jot it down scientifically, and then at home I tried. First time failed, too watery, but then afterwards it works perfectly. So I know exactly, the amount I put, the temperature I put, how much I have to rate it, and it works nicely. And the more you do later on, I wouldn't say I'm a master for that, but certainly I'm comfortable in drinking the kind of coffee that I brew at home now.
excellent. You're right. Practice definitely makes perfect. That was something that was definitely drilled into me when I was growing up. Keep practicing. But I love what you said also about the procrastination and the journaling. I've definitely faced moments in my life where I've either been afraid of something or the anxiety starts coming up, which is obviously coming from a place of fear as well. So then I definitely go towards journaling as well to start writing out, what is going on in my mind and trying to get that out. It's definitely a good way to get the thoughts out of my head onto a piece of paper and just try and analyze a little bit more about what's
No,
going on
actually,
and see what
I do
comes
that
up.
too. First thing, in the morning, I realized, for me, when I first wake up, I would have a lot of thoughts. So if I need to calm myself down by journaling and writing things down, and easily can write out a few pages.
Easily. I do the same thing because somehow first thing in the morning, my head is so full. Thank you so much for that. And I'll move on to my final question and ask you, who inspires you?
Well, I mean, for me, it's not a person. It's basically nature. Because I realize in terms of my energy, I get a lot more energy boosting and calming inner peace by being in nature. So early in the morning, I would tend to have a morning routine by just going to have a walk, have a jog, or even do nothing, sitting by the lake and just looking at the point, gazing at it, and easily a few hours can pass by. But I do get my inspiration by doing that.
That is wonderful. I've definitely realized that nature is an important part of my life too. So I'm happy to be back in Switzerland with my mountains again. So thank you so much, and I
Welcome.
hope we both find some nature later on today to
Mhm.
to calm our minds as well. So thank you so much for
Oh, thank
sharing.
you very much. It's been actually very soul searching, and this is something that I always focus on and enjoy about. So it was a pleasure to be talking to you on these topics. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eudo.